All right, everybody. John Spielke here for GAI Insights, where we're going to bring you the top news that's essential, important, or optional in your Gen AI day. We have a full house today. We have Luda, we have Ankaj, we have Paul, Tim, and Adam. And I think we have all time zones represented here. I'm in California. We got the East Coast covered and Australia as well. All right. And also India. Okay. Ankaj, if you could start off with the first article, please.
Sure, John. So the first one that we have for today is a research paper which is titled Generative AI as Seniority Bias Technological Change, Evidence from US Resume and Job Posting Data.
Yeah, here we have a couple of folks from Harvard, from the Department of Economics, and Harvard more broadly, doing an analysis here of the impact on the job market. What'd you think, Tim?
I thought this was an interesting paper, probably optional to important. It seems like it's reasonably well done. There's a lot of assumptions you have to make to do any kind of study, as we saw with the study, what was it, last week from Bjorn, from the folks at Stanford. A similar kind of study using different data, interesting data from LinkedIn to try and sort out, well, who's hiring and who's not, and is there a difference in junior hiring in particular relative to senior hiring in firms that are adopting AI. So with a host of caveats about the kinds of assumptions you have to make to get there, it's a pretty good study, and it indicates once again that there's lower hiring in these entry-level jobs, particularly in retail environments and things like marketing and communication. So, a reasonably important conclusion with reasonable, I think a reasonable approach, although again, lots and lots of caveats. And maybe the most important one that it's still pretty early in the market. So an early observation, but it's just a couple of years in. So that's one of the biggest provisos.
Yes. All right. So headed for important on that one. What do you think, Paul?
Oh, I think it's an important concept. AI leaders definitely optional. I think he or she's not involved in the hiring. They can't do anything about these macro trends.
All right.
Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Tim.
I would push back on that a little bit because the issue for the AI leader is, do I have to communicate or pay attention to the eroding of my junior staff, which can be critical for firms. If you're a professional services firm, if you don't have junior staff, eventually you won't have senior staff. And that's a real problem. That's not something I don't think that can be ignored by leadership.
Tim, I agree. I just don't think this article helps with that. Great. So let's find an article that talks about a company that's struggling with that and what to do about it.
Well, you won't see companies struggling yet because it takes time. That's like saying, you won't see improvements in cancer rate when people stop smoking because it takes years for that data to accumulate. That's why it's, in my mind, it's important, because you won't get a smoking gun until it's too late.
Well, John, we got an AI leader arguing for important. I can't argue against that.
All right, Luna, what do you think?
Yeah, I am important. I'm with Tim. For a business leader, it's about, this is based on real data from inside the company, is well defined. So it's a trend, right? But and they are going to continue monitoring it. So it's important for leaders to know that this is happening. This is based on good data, and it's a labor strategy of how they're going to orchestrate their employees, how the staircase, right? So I think it's important.
All right, Ankash, where are you on this one?
I was important as well, John, on this one. I think we have already started seeing examples of this happening in various organizations. So I have friends in various large organizations where they are using GenAI variety of tools in their regular workflows. And while the organization is giving these tools to them, they are also being pushed to deliver more with these set of tools, and organizations are not hiring junior talent now.
Yeah.
So I agree with the premise of this paper.
All right, Adam, we're headed for important here.
Yeah, I definitely can support that.
Yeah.
All right.
John, just a quick note. I had a call yesterday. I don't want to name the company, but it's the president of top 20 liberal arts school. most of their $80,000 a year tuition. Luda, most of their graduates go to Morgan Stanley, Goldman, Travelers, Insurance. And I said, you might be looking at 40% unemployment 3 years from now on your grads. I said, these companies are doing everything humanly possible not to hire, and Deloitte, you hire front end, super smart liberal arts kids.
Yeah. Well, there's some of the good economists are saying there's a 50% chance we're going to slide into a recession. I think it's going to, if we slide into a recession, Paul, that's going to happen sooner. I think it's not going to be, 3 years. It's going to be this year, next year. No, it's interesting. Yeah. I have to laugh when people talk about, it's not automation, it's augmentation. Yeah. Well, it's augmentation. That means that one person can do the job of 50. That's automated the other 49. The one person, one person still got a job, all right. Important it is. Akash, next, please.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from VentureBeat and talks about how LangChain 1.0 Alpha consolidates agent design, reducing adoption risk for enterprises.
Yeah, what do you think, Ludo? We have the evolving orchestration layer here.
Yeah, I like LangChain and LangGraph. I think from the very beginning, they realized that you have to have the orchestration of even the simple agents or simple bots that we create, for example, with ChatGPT, and put them into flows and the like, and they were very good at doing so. So they now have a good following, and they were into the agent orchestration very much as well. So, but it's a product announcement, so I don't think I think it's optional for the overall populace, but I really think it's really good for LangChain and LangGraph to go and put a 1.0 and say it's stable, it's working, we can release it as a product. I think it's wonderful.
All right. So where'd you land on this? Optional, important?
Optional.
Optional. All right. We got an optional. Adam, where are you?
Yeah, no. I think Luda nailed it. I've been very impressed with LangChain. I think they've had a pretty good penetration, at least anecdotally, into enterprise, and have been seen as a fairly robust solution, and have always taken a very enterprise-focused approach to their scaling and their development. And this is a significant milestone. But our AI leader doesn't need to know about it.
All right. Optional, Tim. Optional.
Optional with prejudice for me. This is such a puff piece. It's ridiculous. And I don't think, naming a product 1.0. I mean, those of us who have enough gray hairs to remember Google's introduction of Gmail, it was in beta for like 5 years. There's like 50 million people using it. It was still called beta. So I think this is just a waste of time.
All right. Akash.
Optional, John.
And I know Paul's going to go optional. Optional, Paul?
Yes, definitely optional.
All right.
Hey, Luda, now we have a human bot predicting mine. I'm gonna be
All right,
here.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, moving on to the next one. This one comes from AWS, and it's a case study about how Proofpoint uses Amazon Q Business, unlocking the future of professional services.
Yeah. If I would give this an essential if I could peel off the glowing, extra promotional,
Yep.
drippy saccharine layer on this thing. So I'm going to give it an important, but look, this is this is lovely in terms of lays out how this cybersecurity firm has used AI to help on augmentation and automation of the tasks in terms of sensing and then following up with clients, and the leverage that they use. They go through how they think about their data strategy, their organization strategy to help make this happen. The productivity is pretty striking, and I think they're on a whole new learning curve. So I think that this, and we're going to have another one also on accounting. But I was just an old friend of mine is the retired global chairman of PwC, and I was just texting with him this morning, talking about what's the future of professional services going to be, in the context of this stuff. And I think it's, I think it's a big deal. And everybody buys professional, not everybody, most firms buy professional services. So whether you're a supplier or buyer of this thing, I think it's important. So I was really on the fence. I'd given it essential, but I hate the saccharine nature. So help me out here. Important or essential?
Essential for me. I think it's very well laid out. Yeah, it's a little glowing and a little bit of a puff piece, but it has all the pieces that we usually look for in use cases. It says, here's a problem, here's how we solve it, here's a little bit deeper of how really we solve it, and here's the impact. And also they put lessons learned that they hit a couple of them, like work on your data, work on your data, work on your data. That's very important. And they kind of hit on it. So I think it has all the pieces, essential.
Paul?
Yeah, I think it's essential. Yes, I agree with Lou's articulation. I also think it's really important for the AI leader to continue to look for ways for the company to save money on services. I had the fortune yesterday, I was the entire management team of a $200 million company, the CEO and everyone down. And I made the statement, the CFO should not be spending the same amount of money for the yearly audit. And they should be spending less money on outside counsel. And that really sparked a conversation. You know, this idea that you're really connecting what's kind of over in the AI world versus real work here, where we're doing stuff and spending real money, is an important aspect. I think the AI leader, this helps reinforce that.
Adam, where are you on this?
Yeah, no, this is a primo example of exactly how you should do use case. Happy to support essential. Very well done.
All right. Tim?
I was more in the important camp. I can support essential. It's a good use case. It's really simple, but good. And they provide good statistics. And as Lita said, good understanding of how they got there. They don't talk about operations and refinement. They just, there is a lot of this kind of, that turns me off too, this kind of, what did you call it? The saccharine that, is just completely unnecessary, because it's actually a fine use case just on its own.
Yeah. Akash, where are you on this?
Essential, John.
All righty. Yeah,
I think part of what pushes me on a really good use case from important to essential is whether someone who's building entirely in Google Cloud or in Azure could look at this and get value from it and go build something on their own platform. And, it elevates to that level.
All righty. Okay, essential it is. Sure.
I
And
thought that was well stated.
There's one really important point I thought too to take away, which I think we're going to see more and more, which is they built applications. They didn't just deploy chatbots.
Yes.
So again, much more embedding into the workflow as opposed to just, here's a chatbot, go for it.
Yeah, and reaching back to the other article we just had on LangChain, I think Mohammed makes a really important point here, and it relates to what you're just saying now, Tim, about applications. How the orchestration is going to work, is going to be intimately intertwined with governance, right? And that's going to be, orchestration by itself is the sound of one hand clapping, right? All right, Akash, next, essential. Nice one.
Yep. Okay, the next one comes from Prompt Layer and talks about lawyers in the loop, how Midpage uses Prompt Layer to evaluate and fine-tune legal AI models.
All right. For those of you who don't remember, Tim, who's going to cover this, is actually working at a law firm. So what do you think here?
I am. And, it's interesting. If you're in the legal firm, this is probably important. If you're not in the legal firm, maybe it could be important for the concept, but it's a use case that is okay, but compared to the last use case we did in an entirely lower level of quality, it really focuses on one thing. And the reason I can sort of lean towards important is it's an important thing, which most people don't talk about, which is how do I track prompts? Because prompts so much affect the quality of the outcomes that you get from these tools. And so and most people aren't tracking them. They aren't even writing down at all, even in a spreadsheet, the ones that they use. And then if the underlying model changes, even from the vendor side, the entire use of the tool can be compromised, and nobody knows why. And so the idea that prompts are software, in a sense, that writing is software, talking is software, all these things are various forms of communication. And when you start using them for applications at scale, you need to version them, track them, do all the same things you would normally do. So from that perspective, it's an important topic, and this company provides that service. And here's a use case for legal services that does it. But the broader point is twofold. One is that the other good thing about this article was that it enabled them to put domain specialists in charge of tracking and upgrading this software and evaluating it. So that's a big step if you can do that. The domain experts are the ones who can evaluate this stuff. And if they can both create the prompts and track the prompts and regression test the prompts without engineering and technical staff involvement, that's a big step forward, but that's not unique to this product. It's just a design philosophy and an outcome of LLMs.
Yeah.
So I would say optional, but really important concepts. I could lean towards important because these concepts are really important.
All right, on the fence here. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I thought Tim's eloquy there was really excellent. So hopefully, find a way to get that clipped out here. I think the article is important. I think this whole notion, Tim, that you were going to is that we've got to find ways to automate the knowledge workers that have the subject matter experts without requiring, a huge amount of time from architects and engineers is where we're going. And we really haven't seen it before in high-end enterprise software before. It's quite exciting.
And I can tell you that from my current experience and from outside experiences, this is a big slowdown right now. Is you get to a certain level with the domain experts, and all of a sudden you need a RAG implementation, or you need something that the IT staff has to support, and they're not ready for it. Yep. And all of a sudden you have weeks and weeks of delay because you need infrastructure support, or you need some product license, or you need something that has to go through your normal technical people, and they don't have the resources. Nobody's giving them extra resources for this stuff, and they don't have the experience and the skill set oftentimes. So this is a real gap.
And Tim, we don't want the non-subject matter making a call on such an important design element.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, no, this issue, and we talked about before about how, being able to speak in normal language or whatever your professional language is directly to the machine is a big deal. But if you don't have the right development process to uncork that, then you get bogged down again.
Yeah.
All right.
And you can look at the legal processes that are in place around human words. It's ridiculous, right? They have these complicated document management systems, track every letter that's ever been adjusted in an evidence proposal or a contract or whatever. We go to incredible lengths to track this stuff. And right now, it's just the wild, wild west around all this prompt stuff. So it's an important point, but this is just a product announcement, so it's hard for me to get excited, and not even a great one. So it's hard to get really excited about the content of the article itself.
All right, Lou, where are we?
Important. I really think that it is. It's an important point, and we've actually highlighted it a couple of times when people are working on prompt libraries in a particular space, making it available for people with the expertise, right? With the correlating with the last case, the second lesson, one was on data, and the second lesson was, hey, enable your people with expertise, with no-code solutions, prompts, and the like, and that will allow you to go faster. So I think it is a trend that we're seeing, that people are paying way more attention to prompts, putting them in libraries, enabling folks with expertise to actually use those libraries to create apps. So I think important.
All right. Ankash?
Important, John.
Yeah, I could go for important as well for the articulation of this, even though it's a product announcement. All right, next.
Okay, moving on to the next one. So this is a research paper titled Human plus AI in Accounting, Early Evidence from the Field.
Yeah, here we have Stanford and MIT getting together, looking at some of the labor implications, pretty profound. What you were just saying, Paul, why are you paying so much for your auditor? So let's see. We had Akash on this one, I think, right?
Right, John. So, John, what they did in this study was, so they surveyed around 277 accountants, and they collected data from 79 firms. So they collected all the financial and accounting data from these 79 firms, and then surveyed the 277 accountants,
Mhm.
and then questioned them about their adoption of GenAI and how well they did, or how well GenAI helped them improve their workflows. What they got as part of the results was very encouraging. So there was 55% increase in productivity in client support. Then people were able to shift their time from data entry to higher value tasks. They were able to do the monthly close 7.5 days faster. So overall, pretty good results from the use of GenAI, but they also highlight a very important or crucial point that human oversight is still very critical. Experienced accountants, they need to pitch in when the overall confidence in the tool is low. So I think it's an important study.
Okay, but not essential, even though everybody buys accounting services.
If they had the focus of the data set is small and mid-sized firms, right, John? So
Yep.
if they could have done it on more larger firms, I think that would have been a better data set. So that's why important.
All right, we're going for the big I here. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I could support important. I was probably leaning a little more towards optional myself. Unkaj makes some good points though. Um, yeah, if you read into it, it does give you some indications about how to actually get like productivity gains and some quality improvement. And, like you're saying, John, everyone uses accountants, so it's tough to argue with.
All right, Luda, what do you think?
Important. I would not go essential, but it is based on data, not as much data as we would love to see, but based on data, they tell us that how in the specific industry, what's the impact on the productivity. And that's, I think, an important data point to pass on. So important for me.
All right, Paul, where are you on this?
Sorry, yeah, important.
Tim?
Important because I think accounting is very similar to coding and law. It's got a lot of automation reasons because of so many
Opportunities.
rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was my observation when I was working at PwC that seems like accounting firms are populated by um, people who believe in religions that are rule based. Anyway, but Tim,
I can support important. I do think it makes some good points. It's a lot of reading to make what could be made in one page, which is, oh, this stuff really does help us get to higher value tasks
Mhm.
and lower value tasks in rule-based, especially fields that are professionally service driven can be automated. They don't. I wish they'd talk more about the errors and how they address the errors, other than we have humans in the loop. That's sort of to me a catch-all, hand waving kind of answer. But
To that point, does that say 101 pages? I just read the first three. It's a 100-page article.
it's a long article.
It's a very long
Yeah.
article. It goes through the methodology and how they thought about it and things like that. But if you read an abstract, that's good enough, actually,
On this one, yeah, for sure.
to get a
Um,
gist.
all righty. And Akash, we're going important on this. You okay?
Yes, John.
All right, important it is. Next.
Okay, moving on to the last one for today. This is titled Implicit Reasoning in Large Language Models, a comprehensive survey.
So, Luda, what'd you think?
Optional, but I put it aside to and sent to a number of people because it lays out what and actually defines what an LLM and a lot of underpinnings of GenAI. So I thought it's a very good primer, actually. But what it is about is we are shifting, or at least this team thinks that by shifting to implicit reasoning versus explicit reasoning, it can save, we can save time at runtime, and we can. But they dive into how and where those internal computations happen. They put sort of a hierarchy of what and who talked about it and what they've identified. And it's really a very comprehensive study of various methodologies of how do you improve at runtime without necessarily telling the user of what the model is doing. I think it's way too early, and that's why if you go to the last page, you can see a list of problems with this approach, that it's really not ready, but is a compendium of various advances that we've seen in LLMs for streamlining. I think it's an important one, but optional for the overall people.
All right, Tim, go ahead for optional here.
Yeah, I actually kind of like this article, but I think that's because my propeller spins pretty fast. So
I did too.
But I agree. It's probably too deep a read for most people, and there's not enough conclusion. This is more of a framework for evaluation and thinking about these things. I thought you would appreciate this one, John, because at least to me, this one is making the point about planes flying versus birds flying. Yeah. And so it's making the point that, one of the big values of using what they call hidden state reasoning. So rather than having the chain of thought emitted as the model is working in language and words that people can read, which is comforting and is easy to monitor and intervene with, if you use hidden states in the model, it can do anything it wants. It doesn't have to be structurally based in language. And that may open up new reasoning models that are in fact as good or better than the ones we have. So quite interesting. And another indication of models moving beyond straightforward statistical interpretation. So this is also, Gary Marcus and Dave Reed, the naysayers should pay a lot of attention, because at the end of the day, if you believe mind is body, somehow consciousness arises from statistical activations of neurons. And so this is another sort of tiny little step in thinking about that. But to the general AI leader, probably optional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tim. Right up to consciousness evolves from statistical processes, but we can leave that for the day. Hey man, I can just say, if we say that, I could say it's the moon's with green cheese, and
you can. If you don't believe, well, never mind. We'll have that debate another day.
It's only a 30-minute show, guys.
Okay, extreme materialism has no place on our show. No, no. Okay, so let's see. Adam, you good with optional on this one?
I'm right there. Super interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
super interesting.
Yeah.
Optional.
Ankush, optional?
Yes, John.
Yeah, one thing I will point out, these are Chinese authors. They're at the Hong Kong Institute of Science and Technology, which is a beautiful campus. It's above this unbelievable bay, and I don't know what its status is like, but before the Chinese takeover, it was like the MIT of Hong Kong. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting if you look at the stuff that there's some interesting articles, I think, in the New York Times today and so forth about China's approach versus the U.S.'s approaches. This is, if you are in the academic part of pushing this stuff forward, an article like this is gold, right? It lays out the field, it lays out everything. This will get cited and used a ton. This is the infrastructure of scientific progress that the Chinese are investing in. And so people talk about the number difference between the US AI folks and so forth. I would also say that the intellectual scaffolding that they're building for the progress of the science of AI is breathtaking.
And I agree with you, John. This is not the first one. We've reviewed the taxonomies. All the taxonomy papers come from China, Hong Kong, that area of the world. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And we're unfortunately going the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, Tim, this may discover, new representation systems. I mean, people are so caught up on humans being able to understand the representation systems when, I mean, if you go back to the Bell and Newell stuff about different layers of abstraction in a computer, right? You don't have to understand all layers of abstraction to interact well with it. And I think what we're seeing now is I think of, the LLMs is a whole new ecosystem that's birthing languages, if you will, that will be, and many of those languages will just be within the machine in terms of how it's creating capability.
Agree.
John, keep going. I think it's surprising that we're surprised by that. We should expect that. Why do we think the monkey brains had the best communication efficiency?
Well, yeah, but the thing is that and this is a problem I have with an article. I hope we, review soon, like Tom Friedman and the common stuff. The epistemology and the relationship between fundamental beliefs like rights and epistemology and language we've inherited that from the Enlightenment, and values, evaluation, science, and rights are all a bundle, right? They all rely on one particular view of the world in terms of a consistent, provable, objective reality that was brought to us by the Enlightenment. And the church no longer could say that this is how things work. And we're at a similar moment, but we have none of that thinking. And anyway, I'm going off, but it's a huge issue. I'm not surprised, Paul, that people. We've taken the tools of the Enlightenment and science so for granted because they've been around for 500 years, 600 years, that we don't realize that that's what's shaking, right. And we have to get.
Well, it's hard to accept new techniques. Even, I mean, look, I was just reading the other day, Monte Carlo simulations, which everybody thinks about and are very important in this world of statistics, were invented in the Manhattan Project because one of the hardest problems they had was, will fission actually occur? In other words, will the electrons and the atoms hit each other enough to get to critical mass? And it was computationally impossible on paper, absolutely impossible. And so they were very worried that they couldn't create an atomic bomb because they couldn't guarantee there would be enough interactions. And they came up with this idea of, well, we don't have to work it out theoretically on paper. We have computers now and we can just run them. Yeah. And if we run enough cases, the statistics tell us that not even all that many cases will get a very, very good approximation. And that's how Monte Carlo simulation was born. And it turned out to be pretty damn important for the future of the world at that point. Yeah, but nobody believed it at the time. Nobody even thought about it because it was so foreign to the way they were used to doing business. So it's really hard when new mental representations come about for people to even recognize that they're possible.
Yeah, I hear you, Tim. But even that, I think, I mean, and I'll get off it and we'll conclude here. But so many of our institutions, trade, economics, law, basically says that we think there's a world out there that can be provably convincing with each other. And I would say AI is questioning that. And what, like in the famous words of Bill Clinton, what is right. And so you look, I think some of the reason these models are doing things like being willing to kill somebody instead of be turned off, right, which one of the experiments showed, is there's no moral reasoning in them and there's no perceptual verification. We start with the word and then the relationship of the word among all these things. So there's no kind of fundamental philosophical epistemology that can handle this kind of negotiated meeting that we have in the middle of these models. And so, I mean, I agree with you, Tim, but I think there's even the thing that is, I don't think people are understanding is the entire, half the world, I would say, believes in Enlightenment reality, right? It's not phenomenological, right, all that stuff. But the thing is that that half of the world has all the money and all the guns, and that's starting to fall apart. And that is really something we need to talk about. Anyway, enough on this. Enough on the philosophical part. Sorry about that.
Who's running this meeting? Who's the moderator?
Who is the moderator?
Who's got the chalk?
All right. Ankash, what do we have here? Got one essential,
Yes,
I
John.
think. Four important.
One essential. No, we have essential, John.
Wait, okay.
Announcements,
One is-
Paul? Sorry.
No, it's one thing I'm really excited that all these shows are recorded. So from a time capsule standpoint, we can go back to show a year ago. And I'm very interested in what we're going to be talking about 2 years from now, because I think this is kind of really interesting, Ludo, and how naive, how early the market was, a year ago, where we're, oh my gosh, one new model came out. Versus John saying all Western civilization's coming to an end.
We're already seeing it. We're
I don't-
already seeing it, Paul. Like the maturation of the technology is certainly evident, very much so.
Paul, I'm
And-
not saying. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Paul, I'm not saying the world's coming to an end. What I'm saying is that nobody is talking about the container of how we do things is changing, and nobody's talking about the container. Right.
I was able to see. And John, and if you listen to Tom Friedman, all we need to do is just put a piece of code in all the AI models, and U.S. and China will.
That was a tie a yellow ribbon. That was a tie a yellow ribbon article because
it's the FBI view of the world, in my opinion.
You don't have to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So we have one essential, 3 importance, 2 optionals. Paul, any announcements?
Yeah, just on our conference continues to get a lot of momentum. We just added Josh Gaines is his name from Johnson & Johnson. He's the global co-lead of the Johnson & Johnson AI task force. So a huge major firm there. He's super excited, and tickets are selling. We've sold out the number of tables. So we've got 9 companies now sending whole teams. So if you're interested in the conference, get it on your calendar because it's 3.5 weeks away.
All righty. There we have it. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.